Good evening, Stats Rights Radio. We're coming to you live from Washington, D.C. We're bringing you news, political commentary, and political discussion with Professor Kris Hall, author of Sovereign Duty and founder of Liberty First University. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing this evening? We are going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to discuss a little political commentary of what is going on right now in this country and the attack on our federalism republic. Stay tuned for that. And stay tuned at 9 o'clock with my interview and discussion with Professor Kris Hall. Stay tuned.
You can talk about the pit, barbecue, the band was jumping, the people too. I mess around, they're doing the mess around, they're doing the mess around, everybody's doing the mess around. Everybody was juice, you can get your soul. They did the boogie with a steady roll. They mess around, they're doing the mess around. They're doing the mess around. Everybody doing the mess around. Now, when I say stop, don't you move a peg. When I say go, just shake your leg and do the mess around. I declare doing the mess around. Yeah, do the mess around. Everybody's doing the mess around. Now let me have it there, boy. Now you got it, boy. Oh, mess around. Don't mess around. Mess around, boy. Now this band's gonna play from 9 to 1. Everybody here's gonna have some fun doing the mess around. Doing the mess around. They're doing the mess around. Everybody doing the mess around. Now you see that girl with that diamond ring. She knows how to shake that thing, mess around. I declare she can mess around. Mess around. Everybody do the mess around.
That was Do the Mess Around by the legendary Ray Charles. Everybody Do the Mess Around by the legendary Ray Charles. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's 8:33. Welcome back. We are going to talk a little bit on what's going on in the world and in the country and in our failing republic. And at 9 o'clock, we will have an interview and discussion with Professor Kris Hall. So stay tuned for that at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's, I just got some news at my work office that envelope prices are going to go up because of these tariffs. Isn't that what I've always been telling everybody? Tariffs don't work. So look at this. Envelope prices are going to go up. Coca-Cola prices are going to go up. Aluminum prices are going to go up. What comes out of cars are going to go up. Tariffs don't work, ladies and gentlemen. Never has, never will. You cannot have fair trade or crony capitalism work in this system. You cannot have the central government, or any government intervene in the business of America, the economy. You cannot. You cannot intervene in that. If you do, you will have recession. You will have a depression. You will have inflation. How many times have I said this? How many times have I said this? I like to always repeat this quote from a very intellectual person. If I can find it, my apologies. Here we go. By Henry George. In time of war, we blockade our enemies in order to prevent them from getting goods from us. In time of peace, we do to ourselves by tariffs what we do to our enemy in time of war. It's quite simple, ladies and gentlemen. Tariffs don't work. It affects indirectly to our American consumer. People have got to understand that tariffs don't work. Never has, never will. Democrats love tariffs, Republicans don't. And when I see this president institute taxes onto the American consumer to make this craze that we are doing good. No, we're not, ladies and gentlemen. We are not doing good. We are affecting our American consumer. It is affecting our American consumer. Tariffs don't work. So now apparently I haven't been reading, but there's this new trade deal that U.S. and Mexico cooked up with. So I am not familiar with this trade deal, but I can tell you from experience, anything that's coming out of the Trump White House, the same thing as the Obama White House, it's just garbage. It is. It is just garbage. Anything coming out of this administration or previous administrations, it's the same BS over and over and over again. You have to be blind, mad, or an idiot to think that this administration is doing something good. Honestly, you have to be blind, mad, or an idiot. So I just don't understand why people think tariffs are good. They're not. These trade deals are horrible. So again, you're either blind, mad, or an idiot for believing in these administrations. And this goes on before Trump. This goes with Obama. Remember all those morons that were applauding Obama when he passed the Affordable Care Act? Well, this is the same. This is the same, ladies and gentlemen. This is the same. These are now the other side morons that are applauding like seals because they have nothing else to applaud. And I think that's just sad. And I'm quoting Ross Perot here. Now, I know many people don't like Ross Perot, but I do tell you, if he was running in 2016, oh, you betcha he got my vote. He knew what is wrong with this country. He knew it back in 1992, and that's why he ran as an independent. And he's a conservative businessman. And there's no doubt in my mind that if I had to pick between Ross Perot and Donald J. Trump, I'd pick Ross Perot in a heartbeat because he knows how to get the government away from business. Oh, he knows, ladies and gentlemen. He knows. And so this man who claims to be a businessman, who has done multiple big league real estate deals and business deals, please, he bankrupted half a city in southern New Jersey. That's not a businessman. That's a slumlord. But here comes somebody like Ross Perot or Steve Forbes who makes something out of themselves, who does something not for the government, but for himself. Donald J. Trump has done nothing. His dad gave him $5 million to start a stupid business that he bankrupted half a city of Atlantic City. So, ladies and gentlemen, I beg of you, if there are any Trumpsters out there, Wake up! Wake up! Tariffs are hurting America. Tariffs are hurting the American consumer. You don't need tariffs. We need free trade, not tariffs. And this trade deal with Mexico, I have no idea what's in it, but it can't be good. Trust me, it cannot be good. So anyway, well, it is 8:40 right now. 9 o'clock, we'll have our little interview discussion with Professor Kris Ann Hall. Stay tuned for that. We will be right back after this short musical break.
Hello, Joe. What do you know?
We need a hit, so here I go.
Ball one. Hey! Ball two. Hey! Strike one. Ooh. Strike two. Get that umpire. Yeah! A case of Wheaties.
That's got us all aglow. He's just a man and not a freak. Joltin' Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio, we want you and I.
He tied the mark at 44, July the 1st, you know. Since then he's hit a good 12 more. Joltin' Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio, we want you and I.
From coast to coast, that's all you'll hear of Joe, the one-man show. He's glorified, the horse hides fear. Joltin' Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio, we want you and I.
He'll live in baseball's Hall of Fame. He got there blow by blow. Our kids will tell their kids his name. Joltin' Joe DiMaggio.
We dream of Joey with the light brown back. Joe DiMaggio.
We want you on our side. And now they speak in whispers low of how they stopped our Joe. One night in Cleveland, oh, 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 goodbye Street DiMaggio.
That was Joltin' Joe DiMaggio, Les Brown and his orchestra, and with singing Doris Day. Joltin' Joe DiMaggio. Well, gentlemen, it is 8:43, 8:45. We are still here discussing what's going on with our republic. At 9 o'clock, we will have our interview discussion with Miss Kris Ann Hall. Hope you guys all tune in for that. And right now, well, one of our bases of Always States Rights Radio is the idea of federalism. What is federalism? Does anybody know? Federalism is quite simple. Federalism is an administrative, small central government that the powers are few and defined, and multiple autonomous state governments that the powers are numerous and indefinite. You have more power in the states than you have in the central power. That's how this republic was formed. But unfortunately, you had some morons in 1850 and 1860 that decided to ruin the name of state sovereignty over the idea of a human rights violation known as slavery. But of course, The Civil War ended, slavery was abolished, entered into the Constitution, so we should have returned easily back to state sovereignty, right? Wrong. What happened after that? We had a lot of control from the central government. We had um, the Act of 1866 telling several states how to pick their own senators. We had a lot of power during Reconstruction that allowed the central government to do whatever they want, whenever they wanted. And then, of course, when Reconstruction ended, we kind of went back to state sovereignty and states' rights, but it wasn't the same, of course, because of some morons back in 1861 that decided to ruin the name and ruin the reputation of state sovereignty. And then, of course, well, if we want to go back even further, John C. Calhoun really didn't quite understand the concept of state sovereignty. But I don't want to go all the way back. And then, of course, you have 1913. What happened in 1913, you might ask? The passage of the 17th Amendment that killed this republic. The passage of the 16th Amendment that allowed the National Congress and several state governments to use that as carte blanche to institute any tax they see fit. The beginning of the Federal Reserve Act, establishment of the Federal Bank, which again, that's so wrong. It's fine to have a national currency, but not a national bank. National bank should have been controlled by the states. Of course, there should be traded with the U.S. dollar, one currency, but the bank should be at the level of the states. Not a national Congress, not a national bank. And then, of course, after Calvin Coolidge and his great administration that really paved the way of a federalism republic, but then entered Herbert Hoover, there was the end. Because Herbert Hoover began the monstrosity of a central government. And of course came FDR that finished the job. Then you came Harry Truman. Then you came Eisenhower, who also did not respect the rules of federalism. He did something else. He made it too big. And then, of course, you had LBJ. Don't even get started on LBJ. And Nixon. And so on, till we get to Donald J. Trump. Every president has increased the size of the central government. Every president has acted unconstitutionally. They're not supposed to do that, ladies and gentlemen. The powers lies within the states. The power lies within the states, like issues on education, healthcare, life, marriage, even trade for that matter. Power lies within the states. I know many people say, well, when you talk about states' rights, you mean slavery. No, that's not true. No, because of some morons back in South Carolina and Tennessee and Virginia that made it their concept of instituting an unholy war based on a stupid reason, and made an issue of states' rights with slavery, which it shouldn't have been the case. Slavery was a human rights violation, not a states' rights violation. And so I curse those idiots down in South Carolina, John C. Calhoun's, Beauregard, Jefferson Davis, all those idiots that had this mentality because they ruined the name states' rights and state sovereignty. They ruined it. States' rights does not mean slavery, ladies and gentlemen. States' rights means state autonomy, state sovereignty. The power of the states is bigger than the central government. We don't want a humongous central government. We never wanted that. Since when did the founding fathers wanted a monarchy or a dictatorship, a central dictatorship? Never. They wanted autonomous governments to work together to make a perfect union, a more perfect union, and a central government to be an administrative power. That's what they wanted. That's what they wrote about. That's what they instituted and they established. But of course, you've had people take advantage of that and bypass that and now make the central government more important than the states' governments. And that is wrong, ladies and gentlemen. That is wrong. States should be allowed to kick off any union officials they see fit, like the DEA, ATF, certain administrations of the Labor Department, HUD, Commerce. They have no business to do in their states, and so they should be kicked out. They should be arrested and thrown out. Madison has even said it. James Madison, a very underrated president, once said that we have a right to refuse to cooperate with union officials. What does that mean? That means that we don't have to do business with the federal government if we don't want to. James Madison, our fourth president, a very underrated president, was more into federalism than anyone else. And he didn't want a big central government. He vetoed a public works bill because he thought that was an invasion of states' rights and state sovereignty. And by right, he was right. So when you think about states' rights, think about freedom and liberty, and about these words right here. The power lies within the states with numerous and indefinite powers. And the central government are few and defined. Remember those words, my ladies and gentlemen. Few and defined are the powers of the central government. Well, it is 8:51. We'll be right back, and then we'll see if Miss Kris Ann Hall will be ready for our interview. So we'll be right back.
By the light of the silvery moon, I want to spoon. To my honey I'll croon love's tune. Honeymoon, keep us shining in June. Your silvery beams will bring love dreams. We'll be cuddling soon by the silvery moon. By the light of that silvery moon, I want to spoon to my honey, baby, I'll croon love's tune. Honeymoon, keep on a shining in June. Your silvery beams bring love dreams, we'll be cuddling soon by the silvery moon.
And that was By the Light of the Silvery Moon by Ray Noble and his orchestra. By the Light of the Silvery Moon. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is 8:54. Let me see if Miss Kris Ann Hall is available. I will be right back. with the interview, and stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, we have a special guest here for a little political discussion and interview. Ms. Kris Ann Hall, professor of her course, with Liberty First University. She's the co-founder of Liberty First University, multiple author of one of her books, Sovereign Duty. How you doing, Ms. Hall?
I am doing just fine. Thank you so much for letting me be on your show.
Sure, no, my pleasure, my pleasure. So before we dive into some political discussion that's affecting our country right now and our federalism republic, tell us something about your Liberty First University and books that you've written.
We have, I've written 6 books on the Constitution. 2 of them are actually children's books, one for non-readers and one for independent readers, that teaches the history of the Constitution, of our Constitution, that dates back to 1014. And it also has chapters on founders and framers that our history books simply don't teach anymore. As a matter of fact, I believe our history books actually intentionally go out of their way to not teach these particular founders of America, because they defeat the progressive agenda that is being taught in the schools, that the Constitution was a document written by a bunch of rich old white slave owners who wanted to oppress minorities and to keep women from being involved in politics. And so we have those chapters on just a handful of those that really, really defeat that paradigm, that awful caricature of who America actually is. And then we have Liberty First University, which is libertyfirstuniversity.com, and that's online constitutional training, where we teach all the way from 1014, the history of the Constitution. We have courses on the proper application of the Constitution. We actually have a course at Liberty First University on state sovereignty. We have courses on taxation. We have courses on religious liberty and slavery and the American founders. We have one called The Morality of Resistance, which teaches a moral responsibility to defy tyrannical government. And we have so many courses, I can't really name them all to you. Power of the President, Power of the Purse. We have a course on the federal judiciary, what its proper power limits are, and we add 2 new courses every single month. And Liberty First University is perfect for anybody who is trying to understand the Constitution and understand the federal government, understand the role of the states as the greatest guardians of the Constitution and the rights of the people. And we offer this course for anyone from ages 6 to 186. And we have special course rates for students, homeschool, high school, middle school, college students. And we have group rate offers, and we teach the Constitution the way it ought to be taught, as if the founders themselves were teaching it, not with government propaganda or bias or historical revision. We deal only with original source documents. And we also, at libertyfirstuniversity.com, we offer the individual courses on DVD. So if you want just one course, you can buy by DVD. But to be honest with you, for the price of one DVD, you get an entire month's access to, for less than the cost of a DVD, you get the entire month's access to all the courses. Plus, like I said, we put 2 new courses on every single month. There are some that you can only get at libertyfirstuniversity.com. And I am also a radio host, and we have, for 6 years now, we've had a radio show that is globally all over America through terrestrial stations. We are syndicated through terrestrial stations, through internet stations, and our podcast is heard globally. So we do Monday through Thursday, what we call the Kris Hall Daily Journal. My husband is a co-host with me on that show. And on Saturday, we do a double dose of the Kris Hall Show every Saturday, which offers 2 hours of radio entertainment and information. We teach. Our radio show is not a talk show. We are a teach show. And we teach current events from a constitutional perspective, keeping with facts, not fake news, and sticking with principle and not political party agenda.
Okay, no, that sounds really interested on your university, on your courses, and your radio show. And all right, well, let's dive in and let's have, as I covered it before you came on board. What is the idea of states' rights? And many people, when they hear the words, they get utterly offended, and they say, "Oh, that's slavery talk." So, I've mentioned to my listeners and other people that it is nothing like that. I mean, state sovereignty, states' rights, it has nothing to do with slavery. So, I want to put my listeners' ears at ease, and I want to see what your definition of states' rights and state sovereignty is.
Well, I would tell you that my definition of state sovereignty and state rights is irrelevant because I didn't write the Constitution. And so what we teach at my website, krisannhall.com, and at libertyfirstuniversity.com is what the founders define as state sovereignty. And just simply to make summarize the entire lesson, it's the understanding that the state came first, that the people created the states as sovereign, independent governments, that the Constitution is a contract, more specifically a compact, which is an agreement between legally sovereign governments. So our Constitution is an agreement between the states that creates the federal government, understanding that the federal government is a creation of the states, and that every power delegated to the federal government is a power that originated in the states. And the Declaration of Independence explains that. The Constitution itself reinforces that. And every debate, every document, and every supporting word of those who drafted the Constitution proves that the Constitution is a compact between the states to create the federal government for a singular purpose, to be an ambassador on behalf of the states in foreign affairs. And that the powers that are not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states. James Madison wrote in Federalist 45 that the powers not delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are reserved to the states, and that the powers delegated to the federal government are few and defined, and those that remain in the states are numerous and indefinite. Now, these aren't simply the musings of James Madison. These are the repeated understandings of every delegate who was at the convention and would eventually sign the Constitution itself.
And that's how we write. And James Madison, who is one of my favorite presidents and founding fathers, and a very underrated president to add. As I walk through Washington, D.C., there's not one memorial of him. There's not one statue of him. And it's very sad because he really understood the concept. He really brought forth the concept of a federalism republic where the powers of the federal government are few and defined. It's little. I think that the federal government was supposed to be just an administrative power, not a regulatory or a police state, while the states tend to be holding the power and the key of forming a government, forming a nation, and forming a more perfect union with an administrative central power. So I do agree with your definition of states' rights. And, I sometimes, argue with people and all that they don't like that idea. And, they're so accustomed to having big daddy government come here and save them. And you just cannot have that. I mean, it's like when the city of Chicago is having a lot of violence and all that, and they're asking the federal government for aid. Well, that's fine, but it's not the federal government's responsibility to enter into the city of Chicago and calm down the situation. It's the state of Illinois that has to do that. So, it's also, that's an invasion of state sovereignty within that state and all that. But another issue I want to touch base, and my listeners, and quite frankly, the American people don't understand, and many states have lost the power to use the nullification process to nullify acts of Congress that are unconstitutional no matter what, and refusal to cooperate with union officials. Why has states stopped using this technique?
Well, Samuel Adams said it this way: no people will tamely surrender their liberties nor be easily subdued when knowledge is diffused and virtue preserved. He said that, on the contrary, when the people become universally ignorant and debauched in their manners, they will sink underneath their own weight without the aid of foreign invaders. And so what we're seeing now is that universal ignorance that Samuel Adams was talking about. When we, in 1833, when we turned away the treatise on the Constitution written by St. George Tucker and began teaching in our schools, our law schools, our colleges, the treatise on the Constitution from Joseph Story, we switched from educating our people on the understanding that we are a federal convention into teaching that we are a nationalist convention, meaning that the power is supreme in the federal government, not that the power originates in the states. And so this federal supremacy that we've been teaching since 1833 has infected the American people with an ignorance about not only the authority of the states, but the duty of the states to control their creation. And so what has happened is through this ignorance, the states don't realize that they have that Article 6, Clause 2, or Article 6, Section 2 of the Constitution actually teaches that the states are not bound by any legislative act that is not made in pursuance to the Constitution. Instead, we teach that Article 6, Section 2, which is actually, which we refer to as the Supremacy Clause, we actually teach now that the Supremacy Clause dictates that every act of the federal government is superior to that of the states. And that is, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Correct there again. Yeah, many people have twist and turn the idea of the Supremacy Clause, and I don't believe in my darkest nightmares that James Madison, the father of the Constitution, wanted to give that monstrosity of power to the central government over the states. I mean, James Madison vetoed a public works bill because he said that that was unconstitutional because those were not the enumerated powers of the central government. And
well, more importantly, not just James Madison, but everybody who ratified the Constitution.
Correct.
Was opposed to that kind of power being delegated to the federal government. One of the strongest arguments against the Constitution by the anti-federalists was the fear that the federal government over time would accumulate powers beyond that which the Constitution actually authorized, which is the whole reason why that James Madison wrote Federalist 45. To reassure these delegates that as the Constitution was written, the federal government would not be authorized to accumulate power. But the irony is, because we have failed to teach the Constitution for over 150, almost 175 years now, we have failed to teach the Constitution in such a way that now the people don't even understand that the Constitution creates a limited and defined government, and that the states have not only the right but the duty, as both Madison and Jefferson and Wilson and Brutus and Mason all said, they have a duty to deny unauthorized power exercised by the federal government.
Correct. You're absolutely there. And not only, and, many people think that, just going back to 1840, John C. Calhoun was a man of states' rights. I don't believe for a second that he was, maybe in his own little mind, but he came up with his own idea of nullification that James Madison said no. It was he shut down John C. Calhoun's idea of nullification, but that's for another type of discussion. But you're right. Nowadays,
that's not even true. I hear that all the time. People say that James Madison flip-flopped on nullification, that he actually was opposed to nullification, and that's actually false. James, what they do is they take that discussion and the later discussion rather than the 1800 discussion, and they take the later discussion out of context, where Madison is telling us that, hey, there is a proper nullification, there is an improper nullification. When Madison is saying no, in the times where you see Madison saying no to nullification, he's not saying no to nullification in general. He's saying no to illegal nullification, because you see, where the Constitution actually delegates power to the federal government, the states are not authorized to nullify that activity, because by contract they've agreed that the federal government has that power authorized. So what Madison was saying is, where we properly delegated power and where the federal government is properly using the power that has been delegated, the states can't simply say, no, we are not going to comply. That's the problem they had with the Articles of Confederation. But Madison never changed his mind that where the federal government is exercising unlawful and unauthorized power, that the states absolutely have a right and a duty to nullify. Madison called it interposition. Interposition is what the states are supposed to do to nullify. Nullification, the way Jefferson described it, is how nullification works.
No, you're right there. And what I'm saying is that he shut down John C. Calhoun's own version of nullification because John C. Calhoun wanted to say that any act passed by the National Congress, states can nullify it and not obey it. And that's simply not what Madison wrote about, or even.
Yeah, Madison never changed his mind.
Correct.
He simply clarified it. It's like today. The states who are sanctuary cities offering benefits of citizenship to aliens who are not naturalized. That is unlawful nullification of federal naturalization laws, because we delegated the power of the federal government to create a uniform rule of naturalization. And for the states to defy that rule of naturalization and offer the benefits of citizenship to persons who are not naturalized is an example of unlawful nullification today.
Oh, you're right there. And touching base on the whole immigration issue, you're right. We granted the powers of the central government to create a naturalized system. And as Scalia said in his dissent for SB 1070 ruling, is that Arizona and others, and in quote, and other states can pass any immigration law they see fit, even the most aggressive one, as long as not contradictory to federal constitutional law. And that's what many states in California and New Jersey and New York don't really understand, is that when they are defying that type of law, which the federal government is granted that power, you are contradicting federal constitutional law. Another example is when Congress passed the 13th, 14th, and the 15th Amendments, and many southern states and western and Rocky Mountain states were defined that by instituting state segregation laws, they were being contradiction to federal constitutional law. So you can pass any law you see fit as long as you're not contradicting to the federal constitution.
Right. And the states can also pass laws that actually contradict federal law if those federal laws are not made in pursuance to the Constitution. For example,
Correct.
The states that have legalized marijuana are engaging in lawful nullification because we have never, ever authorized the federal government through the Constitution to regulate what we eat, what we drink, what we smoke, what we put in or on our body.
You're right there, and I'm glad you brought that, because there's one particular court ruling that I read, and at first I was kind of skeptical of why Scalia sided with the liberal jurists, but then in reading his concurrence to the opinion, which was in Gonzalez versus Reich, where the state of California passed a referendum to allow medicinal marijuana, the comprehensive my apologies, I forgot the name of the referendum in California passed, but one of the main things of that referendum was that California wanted to encourage other states and the federal government to come and help them enforce that law. Well, now I understand why Scalia sided with the liberal jurists. The liberal jurists sided because, they want to enforce the Commerce Clause and they want a big power for central government. But Scalia said that this referendum, this law in California, shows no sign of state sovereignty itself. I mean, how can you be asking for the help of a federal government that has federal laws already in place? I mean, it's like if Pennsylvania, when they're passing nullification against the Fugitive Slave Act, they're not going to say, "Oh yes, South Carolina, come join us." It's ridiculous.
Right. Well, and the notion that the states are not the understanding is the states are not only sovereign, they're independent, right? So there are some people who believe that the states can refuse to comply with federal laws, but they have to have a certain number of states agree with them before that actually is lawful. The problem is that's not true, because if the states have to wait for 36 other states to agree, or they have to wait for even one state to agree with them, then they are not sovereign. And if they are not sovereign, then the Constitution is not a legally binding document.
Correct. Yeah, I now in reading Scalia's point of view, now I side more with Scalia's concurrence than with Kennedy's opinion brief, because Kennedy was just enforcing the Commerce Clause, which that's an also, I think have been mistaken. Has been taken out of context. I don't believe the founding fathers meant to regulate, was meant to make it a police state. I think they should have.
Yeah.
They
I
should
have
have.
an article on my website, actually, chrisanhall.com, about the General Welfare Clause and how it isn't about money. And it isn't about regulating everything. And I'm sure you're aware, but in this article, I talk about how James Madison presented the true meaning of the General Welfare Clause in 1792 when he was a member of the House of Representatives and arguing on the cod fishery bill. And in that argument before the House of Representatives, James Madison makes it perfectly clear that the General Welfare Clause, the Commerce Clause, the necessary and proper clauses, they're simply not catch-all boilerplate, do whatever you want things. He actually says what they are they're not powers in and of themselves, but descriptions of the purpose of the powers that are delegated. So they don't open up the door to whatever the federal government wants. They describe the purposes for why the other powers were delegated themselves.
You're right there, and as I like to call the FDR court, the Politburo court, because they completely misrepresent what the Constitution stands for and the Commerce Clause itself. And even legislators nowadays, even in the past, in the 1930s and 40s and 50s and so on, to now, they really don't understand what the true meaning. Like I said, I do believe the founding fathers meant to say to administer commerce, not to regulate. If people understand the main concept of the central government, I don't believe it was to regulate like a police force. I think it was to administer commerce, to make sure all the states work together to form a more perfect union with an administrative central power.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's just the understanding of the definitions and the meanings of words. We may be the only culture on the planet that believes that the word regulate is synonymous with government, and it's simply not the truth. And it wasn't that way when our founders used that word.
Correct. It is, like I said, it's the foundings of the Progressive Politburo. Just because Chairman Stalin raided poor grain farmers and other businesses doesn't mean that FDR gave that right to do it as well, and changed the wordings of the Constitution. Well, I think it was Woodrow Wilson who, in his meaning of the Declaration of Independence, meant to degrade it and say that he meant to degrade the Declaration of Independence of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness into his own words of totalitarianism government.
Well, he's just among the growing number of people in America today who are actually federal supremacists, and they simply don't know it. The idea that state sovereignty is the argument for slavery is some of the ignorance that drives that errant thinking. Most people don't realize that it was actually state sovereignty that ended slavery and not the other way around. It was the federal government enforcing slavery even during the Civil War on states who were exercising their right to sovereignty and saying, we're not going to enforce slavery in our state. And if a man or a woman comes into our state, they are free. It is not about, we are not going to enforce this immoral law in our state. And because we're sovereign, we don't have to.
You're right there. And that's why multiple states like Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, they've nullified against the Fugitive Slave Act and other policies by slavery. In 1855, then Senator Charles Sumner, he presented to the Massachusetts General Assembly to desegregate the public schools in Massachusetts. So it gives the power of the states to defy other states and welcome the ideas of freedom.
Right. So
So
what we do at KrisAnnHall.com, what we do at LibertyFirstUniversity.com, what we do on the radio show and the books is we try to arm people with these facts so that we can be the narrative. The problem that we have in America is that we are so saturated with this propaganda and this errant teaching that even those who want to believe in the Constitution, who are dedicated to the Constitution, don't have the fundamental principles, don't know the fundamental principles, don't know the background about the Constitution enough to actually articulate the truth and make the argument that takes back the narrative. Everybody complains about the media in the schools. Well, we outnumber the media. We outnumber the teachers in the schools. So if we were equipped with, and I'm talking about just the population of people who want to be truthful about the Constitution, not those who simply are happy with the errors that they've been taught or attached to those errors, if you were. Just those of us who are diligent and want to be liberty people, want to be minded about our Constitution properly, we outnumber those who are teaching false facts about the Constitution. And all it takes is for those who have this fire in their spirit about liberty to speak up and speak out. And that's what we try to do. We try to not simply educate, inform, but we want to equip people and inspire them. You know, it's not just enough to carry around your pocket Constitution. It's not just enough to say, you know, the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. Well, what you have to be able to do is articulate in the face of lies the truth that makes them obviously lies.
correct. You're absolutely right. And kudos on your Liberty First University. And I hope that you really bring forth more to the message out there to people that are more than a little bit ignorant and don't understand the concept of a republic, of a federalism republic that this country was established. We got 4 minutes left. Mrs. Hall, is there anything else you'd like to add on your teachings and stuff like that?
You know, I do want to thank you for your dedication to state sovereignty. And I think the more people that are actually out there teaching the truth about this, the better. I mean, what we have now is a culture in America where we have become federal-centric. We think that all of our problems originate in Washington, D.C., and therefore all of our solutions originate in Washington, D.C. And so in the meantime, we feel powerless, we feel overwhelmed because you can't go talk to the President of the United States, and you can't get in touch with the Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and my goodness, even your House of Representatives is, your representative in the House is just nearly impossible to get a hold of. So people become overwhelmed and they feel discouraged and defeated. And that's what those in power want you to feel. Mm-hmm. And state sovereignty is the power of the people. James Madison called it the greatest power on earth. And that's why we have states. The Declaration of Independence says, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. It says, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. And that's what the power of the states is. The power of the states is the people controlling their state, local governments, and in the meantime, controlling the federal government as well. And we need to learn as a people how the Constitution works, how it was written to work, so that we can understand how we have become deceived into this federal-centric society.
That's all right. All the answers do not originate or end in Washington, D.C., and that's what we have to really put an end to that and bring it back to the states, either through Article 5 or other articles. You're absolutely right. Well, Ms. Hall, it's been a pleasure having you. I wish you all the best, and let's hope we can stay in touch and discuss more and to bring more people into the idea of state sovereignty and back into our sane federalism republic.
Yes, sir. Anytime you call me, and we'll come back on the show. Thank you very much for what you're doing, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to reach your audience.
Thank you as well, and I hope you have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a very good discussion that we had with Miss Kris Ann Hall, founder of Liberty University. Check her online courses at libertyfirstuniversity.com. Also, her books, also at her website, krisannhall.com. Sovereign Duty is one of her books. I totally recommend, because the power of the states is more important than the power of the central government. Power lies within the states. Remember that, folks. Power lies within the states. Well, thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. For states' rights, always. Thank you, and good night.